Hola amigos, bien o qué. Saludos desde Medellín. Otro día bonito aquí hoy. Entonces, tema de hoy. am, complejidad, niveles de complejidad y cómo ellos pueden ayudarnos para mejorar nuestra fluidez. Este es el tema de hoy. So, levels of complexity and how that can help us improve our fluency. So what do I mean by a level of complexity? Well, literally, how you make something more complicated, or how you add more detail might be a better way of saying it. So, otro nivel de detalle, mejor. Let's give an easy example. Let's say I want to talk about my job experience. So I could just say, well, what I do, what's my profession? Okay, so let's say I'm a teacher. Well, that's basically it. That's the very basic thing to say. But we can then look at more complexity. So complexity is saying things like experience, how many years you've done the job, what type of maybe company you worked for, these kind of things. That would be an extra level of complexity. And we can carry this through into most sort of situations. So it's like whether we give a very quick answer or a detailed answer. So we could say something like, what are your plans for next weekend? Oh, well, I'm going on holiday. Okay, that's where you're going, on holiday. But you could give more detail. You could say something like, well, I'm going to Miami for the weekend to visit my aunt who has a house, and yeah, so we give more detail. So really, for most of the situations that we're preparing for, if you like, we can look again at whether we can add more detail, more complexity to either what we are going to say, or perhaps we can prepare for more questions. We can think carefully about, okay, so what if they ask me this as well? You know? So in both cases, we're adding more complexity to it. Let's go back to the other analogy. Let's think about a job interview. Let's say you're going to interview for a job. Now, there are obviously lots of ways you can answer some of the questions you get. The questions are fairly standard. Normally it's something about you on a personal level. Then it's something about your qualification, your job experience, how that's relevant to the new company. And then it's like a why question. Why do you want to work for them? What skills do you bring them? What can you do to help? This kind of thing. Now, most of these you can give a fairly brief answer to. But again, if we think about it, you can be prepared to give a more detailed answer. So you can prepare yourself for what's probably the second question that's coming. So they might ask you something like, what's your experience in this type of job? So you can give a fairly brief answer. You work so many years in this type of job, in this company or the other. But then they might follow that with a secondary question, which will be more specific, more technical. Could you give some more detail about what you did working in that project, in that company? So you can prepare for the more detail you're going to need to give. So in that sense, adding extra complexity into these conversations is an interesting exercise, because like we said yesterday, vocabulary now isn't always the problem. It's more about practice, maybe making sure that the phrases we're using are sayable, not too many mistakes, and hopefully therefore easier for us to remember. And if you remember them in a sequence, it gets easier because we can link them together. So we know that if we get a question about, let's say, job experience, we can think of maybe 5 or 6 sentences we can use to talk about our job experience whenever we get asked that type of question. Things like that. So that's the tip for today. Think about levels of detail. Nivel de detalle por cualquier tema. Más complexidad. More complexity, both of things we are going to say, and maybe also the types of questions now that perhaps people might ask us. And let's see if we can use that to put our vocabulary to better use. So there we go, that's the tip for today. I hope that's useful. Déjame saber en los comentarios. And I'll see you tomorrow. Cheerio for now.